Okay, we are now recording, and
Oh,
we
okay.
got
Well,
Grandma and Time to Stand is here. Tell us whose grandma you are, so people know what the story is, and then tell us the story as a certain news channel wouldn't tell it.
okay. Yeah, good evening. I am the grandmother of Christian. He is my son's boy, and I've been kind of holding back for almost about a year now. And I think it's time for me to speak my voice on the incident that happened with the LAPD off-duty officer Kevin Ferguson on February 21st, 2017, with the incident with my grandson. And I just want to clear a lot of confusion that I've seen on social media and news stations. I personally spoke to the girl and my grandson about the incident. This whole incident started because two grown men felt that it was acceptable to verbally assault a young 13-year-old girl for unintentionally stepping on a small portion of grass that was next to the edge of a curved sidewalk.
Now, Grandma, if I could, what, and not so many words, but what did the gentleman tell the little girl, and why did your grandson step up?
So when my grandson came to the defense of the girl that was being, and he was protecting her from being verbally assaulted.
You want to get tied up into fucking dealing with 100 fucking employees directly.
What'd he say?
You know what I mean?
Oh, hold on a second. That's my brother coming in. Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, but the whole thing is this, is it happened because two grown men decided that it was okay to verbally assault a girl and call her a cunt. And when my grandson came to the girl's defense and was protecting her from being verbally assaulted, Ferguson physically assaulted my grandson. And that should have never happened. And I just want to remind people that he never stepped on the grass. He never trespassed. All he simply did was stand up for a girl that was being verbally assaulted. So standing up for a girl, and then he gets assaulted. And
Yeah, I've taught my son to stand up for the females.
right. You know, and the assault to my grandson, to me, it should have never happened. From my point of view, I mean, it happened because this adult male did not know how to control his temper. All he had to do was simply maybe like take out a phone out of his pocket, take a picture of the kids and go to the local junior high, or, you know, talk to the parents or get the school district involved. But to me, he took it upon himself to chase the kids down the street after they started walking away and continue to assault my grandson, as you can see in all the videos. And I think everybody needs to know that the truth is that a lot of people keep saying that, you know, it's a gang of kids. You know, it wasn't a gang of kids. It was 4 junior high students walking home and then being verbally assaulted by 2 grown men that should have known better. It's that simple, you know, and people just think, you know, gang of kids, you know, trespassing. It's not about that. It's about 2 grown men that were bullies that day. And, you know, it really upsets me that people don't see the truth behind this. They just keep seeing what the internet wants to show them, what social media wants to show them, you know. And I also would like to clarify that the 4 junior high students, they have never been asked to stay off the grass from anybody in this neighborhood, nor have they been involved in any vandalizing or damaging of the people's property at any point in time prior to or after this incident. These were just 4 kids walking home, minding their own business. You know, and for the boys that came in the defense of my grandson, he didn't even know them. They were just some high schoolers walking by that felt they needed to protect a human being that was being assaulted. And so the people that think, oh, you know, like I said earlier, oh, these gang of kids, this off-duty officer, or I should say, just this guy that decided this day he wanted to, you know, verbally assault a girl, you know, he's the one that caused all of this. If he would have let those kids walk away like they were doing in the video, instead of him running after them and kicking my grandson in, you know, in the private area, if he would have just let them walk away, none of this would have ever happened. But his anger and his temper got to him because a 13-year-old boy stood up to him because he was being such a bully, you know, and, you know, that's what's sad. And my message to all the people saying that the kid, you know, which is my grandson, should have more respect. He's raised in an amazing family where we put God first. He always protects his friends. He's always thinking of people first before himself. And he has an amazing heart. And he showed it that day when he protected that 13-year-old girl from the two men that verbally assaulted her and should have known better.
Well, I want to remind people too, he just wasn't kicked between the legs. He was pushed around, wrestled around, thrown around, and shot at.
Right, right.
And this is after he started assaulting the young man. When we talk about assault, we're not just talking about a police officer putting a hand on somebody. We're talking about assault. I mean, physical assault.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some other legal terms better defined, but I think you got the picture. And if y'all have seen the video, y'all know how bad it was.
Right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and it's tough because, you know, you have some people saying, oh, he's an off-duty cop, and then you have some people saying, oh, he's just a normal citizen. You know, what is it? Was he an off-duty cop that day that used and abused his power, or was he just an everyday person? And I personally think if it was just an everyday person, that person would have been arrested that day.
Yes,
but because he was an off-duty cop, he got a little extra, you know, attention towards him, you know, privileges towards him, you know, but, you know, I mean, what he did was kidnapping. You know, he dragged him on property, off property, you know, wouldn't let him go after, you know, my grandson requested several times. And to me, a lot of this is really sad because bullying is such a big thing nowadays. Kids are harming themselves because they're being bullied. And we have my grandson that actually stood up to two bullies that day. I mean, he should be commended for that, for sticking up for a 13-year-old classmate and taking a stand against these bullies. And instead, people are making it out to be that my grandson is a disrespectful boy. But really, if people look at it and really judge it the way it should be judged, is he got assaulted for standing up for a 13-year-old classmate. It's really sad.
By an out of control police officer who was off duty at the time.
Yes.
He's got a temper. He's a bully with a badge, and he needs to be dealt with by the authorities in the proper manner. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And, you know, to me, I mean, because it's so prevalent, we see on social media, you know, I just want all these people on social media to know, you know, I try not to read the comments because a lot of people just promote hate. And I really want them to know that my grandson, I wish they knew him as a person, as a human being, because if they did, they'd actually be pretty amazed.
Well, I have
with
talked
such
to
an amazing person, and boy, he is. I mean, young man, he is. He's just amazing, you know. And I'm not just saying that because he's my grandson. I'm saying that because of his character, of who he is. I mean, I've had people come up to me and be like, "I would have never thought that was the boy on the video. He's such a good kid." But people are so they rush to judgment nowadays. And it's really sad. You know, see the story for what it is.
If I can step in there for a second, Grandma. when I seen this, the cameraman and I, you know, I really want to thank you for getting in touch with me when I got a hold of you on Facebook and stuff. But there was a lot of words saying that, you know, these are just illegal punk kids, yada yada, this and that, and you know, I was glad to be there to put the story out, and a lot of people had got their minds changed. You know, even some friends of mine and family and stuff. You know, oh, whoa, wait a minute, you know, because I got to talk to the dad, I got to talk to, you know, your grandson, you, and it did change a lot of minds of what he's really like, you know, and that's amazing. It doesn't matter what you do or how you say it, you're still going to have those haters out there. Just like when we did the rally, when that guy came out with the bat. You know, he came at me and started kind of like yelling at me, and I tried to calm down the situation and tell him, look, man, you need to be pissed off at the soft duty cop. Well, you know, he started yelling and screaming, well, they ran through my yard. No, they didn't run through your yard. Okay. The off duty cop pulled him through your yard.
Right.
You know, and it's sickening because in the video, you guys will hear, you know, them saying, well, you said you'll shoot me. No. Christian said, I will sue you. Now, even with that fact, California has a imminent threat law. Now, you can actually walk up to somebody and say that I'm going to kill you, hurt you, beat you up, whatever. But as long as you're not lunging, having a weapon in your hand, you know, there's nothing they can do about it other than call the cops and whatever. Now, going through all this process, Grandma, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but has there anything been, like, any calls made to Anaheim Police Department saying these kids are vandalizing my yard, they're always walking across my yard, you know, come here and take care of this? Was there any calls or anything to Anaheim to, you know, let them know that this is happening so they can come and check it out?
From what we understand, not from that house, ever. Never.
Okay, so there's never no calls, basically, you know, saying that there's a situation like this. But then again, I don't know if you want to get into, you know, specifics on, you know, we can delete this later at that, but him wrestling with your grandson, you know, kicking him in the nuts, you know, now you got the other kids that were protecting your grandson when this person never identified himself as a cop pulling this kid. You know, I mean, wouldn't you want, you know, for everybody out there listening to this, if your kid is being accosted by somebody, wouldn't you want other kids or anybody in the area to stand up for the kid, to get this adult off the kid until you find out what's going on? And from what I gather from what the DA was saying of them dropping the charges, that just gave society the okay to just go and grab kids.
Right.
Yeah,
I'd like to. Yeah, I would like to say more, but because of the lawsuit that we have, I really can't touch that point. I wish I could maybe after, you know, the lawsuit, because right now it is in discovery phase. And from my understanding, the trial will start in September of this year. So until then, I really can't make any comments on any of what you just, you know, most of what you just said. I mean, you can speak on it all you want. I just would like to just keep that part of it, you know, out for myself, only because, you know, we have that. And like I said, it's in discovery phase. And so they are interviewing a whole bunch of witnesses, you know, and that's really all I can say about that.
Yeah, well, that hopefully, works.
And hopefully we'll get justice. We'll get justice when that happens, because it's going to be a little different. It's going to be, you know, our peers, our, you know, jurors making a decision on what's going to happen here.
Well, that's okay.
And not a DA.
That's okay, because really, I think the major point of tonight is to get across what's happened since then, how they've let this cop manipulate the system and let him go.
Right.
I think that's the major point we need to get to, because like I said, most people that are going to see this already know the story and seen the video of the original, and the TV interaction and all that. So unless you have something you think is important that needs to be said, let's move on to that part about what's going on with the charges for the cop and how they're manipulating things.
Yeah, I just think, I think what disturbs me most when the DA came back was, the whole time they were talking about, how awful and they weren't referring to him as an off duty. They were referring him to as a civilian, Mr. Ferguson. And so that's fair. I guess I will say the same thing, Mr. Ferguson, and all they kept saying is, how bad decision he made. He's harmed those kids for life. He jeopardized all those, children in the path where the gun was shot. How wrong he was about, kicking Christian, in the privates, and they were, so against all this stuff and how bad it was, but then they didn't press any charges. I just don't understand that. I don't comprehend that.
Okay,
Like
well,
you
did I
see-
get this? Did I get the story straight that they decided not to press charges because he was off duty and they're looking at him as a civilian?
Yes, that's what they kept saying. They kept saying that they were looking at him as a civilian and they didn't have enough proof, to prove any charges or any wrongdoing. But he did make bad decisions, very bad decisions that could possibly, traumatize these teenagers for life. And, I think there's more to it. I think they need to go back and look at it again because there's enough proof on those videos to show wrongdoing on his part.
Yeah, that's
He
what I don't
chased
get.
those kids down the street when all he had to do was stop, let them go, take a picture, go to the school district. There was a better way to solve this, and he didn't. And to me, he needs some kind of anger management. Really, he needs some kind of anger management.
Yeah.
And again,
If
that's
he's like
my
that-
opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but if
You know,
he's like
people-
that in the public, off duty, can you imagine what he's going to do when he's got that badge on, and when he's got that authority behind him? How he treats people? I mean, I can only imagine it. But
Yeah.
a person's acting like that, he's probably going to act that way when he's got the badge on too. He's probably
Yeah.
got anger problems and judgment problems there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And to me, if anything, was to come out of that part of it, I would have been happy if they would have pressed some kind of charges and said, he needs to go to anger management. He needs to go volunteer, just to get him to be a better person. Because the anger, you could just see the anger that day that he was showing. And, he's supposed to be there, as an off-duty officer, I'm going to go back to that, to protect and serve, not to harm people, not to hurt people. He should have educated those the teenagers. He should have educated them, like, hey, and talked in a proper manner, like, hey, there's been a lot of, kids in the neighborhood vandalizing stuff and doing this and that. Not that I'm saying it's you kids, but, we need to, educate them. But instead, he took his anger out on 4 kids, junior high students, that were walking home from school.
that sounds like to me he was still using his position as a police officer to assert authority over these young kids that he didn't have at the time.
Right,
But,
right. Especially when he called 911, and this is what the DA said, that he called 911 and said he was an off-duty officer. So no, he wasn't acting as a civilian that day. He used that power to make a 911 call and say, so. But I don't want to say very much more about that part of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's fine. But
yeah,
the other point is, all right, so the DA and whoever is involved here decided, since you're a civilian, we're not going to press charges because we don't have enough evidence, although we know there is plenty of evidence because it's all on the video. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this? And before you do, I'm going to tell you, I have talked to more than one person.
Mhm.
I have talked to several people that got to know your son from this, and they concurred that he's a good kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
Like
we-
I said,
can
I've
we
had
bring up
people.
the,
Go ahead.
Can we bring up the information, like because what we're going to do is we're going to get basically we want to get people calling the DA's office and
Yeah, we'll
call
do that.
around.
You can give that
Okay.
to me, and I'll put all that in the description.
Okay.
And I'll put up something saying if y'all feel as strongly as I do about this, then here's the information. You can voice your opinion to to whoever we send it to, give the information out for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I think he
yeah.
should have. He did exactly what he should have done, is defend her.
Yeah, because to me, bullying, it has to stop. It's harming our youth. It's harming our families. And my hope is that everyone in every community will start to stand up against bullies.
Whether they have a badge or not.
Yeah, in a peaceful and loving way. And just get the message to people that bullying is not okay. It's not. It's hurting people, and it's got to stop,
Well, you're using nice words. I've had other words I would use besides bullying, but we won't go into that.
Yeah. I do. And I just, like I said, I just want to get the message out that people just, because I've seen, when Channel little step they did, people were like, well, the grandma should teach him respect. You guys are not understanding. He didn't trespass. He didn't step on the grass. He merely protected a 13-year-old girl from being verbally abused by two bullies.
And you remember
That's
the
the
old
point.
saying, respect is earned, not given?
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
Off-duty officer deserves no respect by his actions that day.
I totally agree with that. I do. And, it's, I don't know. I just,
Well, I think
my grandson has such a big heart. I'm not surprised he did this. And I'm
Yeah.
surprised he stood up for a 13-year-old girl because he doesn't like that.
Yeah.
He has, brothers and sisters. And I see the way he is. He's very protective.
Well,
You know,
hopefully this
and-
won't affect him too much. I know these things can, because I went through a encounter with a bad police officer, and
Yeah.
30 years later, it still pisses me off.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is too, and one of the things that I had said, and I just spent time with my grandson this weekend, like I do, and I have been since he was a young boy, barely being able to walk. We always went places and did things, and so I spent some time with him this weekend. And one of the questions I asked him, like, how are you feeling? And he's good. And I asked him again because when he was 6 years old, he had said he wanted to be a cop. So this weekend when we were spending time together, I said, I said, I had this question, and I know I've asked you before, but I just want to make sure, I go, you still want to be a cop? And he said, yep. He says, I still want to be a cop. And he loves football, so he's going to try to, do something with football eventually. Not right now, but, eventually. And he still wants to be a cop, and I know he would be an amazing cop. And I know that he would be one that would care, serve, and protect.
And that's the kind of police officer we need instead of what we're getting so much of these days.
Yeah, and I know some people on social media were like, oh, good luck getting your grandson getting into the force because, with a criminal background, but he doesn't have a criminal background.
Yeah. That's right.
And it's just like, what? Yeah, we do want people like my grandson that have a heart, that care, that are loving, that want to serve and protect and not harm. So, but, sometimes you have to close down your social media and be like, people are going to say stuff and they're going to say mean stuff on purpose just to get people going.
Yeah.
So as for me, I have to remember that.
And remember that a lot of those people that instigate these false accusations or false statements or try to make your grandson look bad and the other kids involved, they are police officers themselves, family of police officers, or police department employees. We have seen that so many times, and we have proven it so many
Right.
times that that's who is the big ones doing this, that kind of crap. Now,
Mhm.
some of them are just ordinary citizens that have been brainwashed over the years that if a police officer says something, you take their word before you take anybody else's, which is BS. They're
Yeah, we
human
need
too. They lie, and they get away with lying. They are taught to lie, and they don't get in
Wow.
trouble in court if they lie,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So why would you want to believe them first over somebody that's not taught to lie, that's taught
Mhm.
not to lie, that gets held accountable if they do lie, et cetera?
Yeah. Yeah.